So, okay, so I'm going to talk about the Pyoran in Japanese, Ojodo today. Okay, so let me begin my presentation with this. ね、ちょっと待ってね。So, where will I go when I die? So sooner or later, we need to complete this life. And then I think for many people, most people, this is a very, very big question. I say this is a kind of a homework for each of us to think about during this lifetime. So my first answer would be like a crematory, right? So once we die, we go, straight to, well, not straight, but we go to crematory for cremation, right? So this is a picture of my grandmother, Ba-chan, on father's side. My father's mother, Masae-san, Kuwahara Masae-san. So yeah, she lived a very, I'm sure tough life because of the year she lived, before the war, during the war, and after the war. And then she married to my grandfather, Ji-chan, who was a Jodo Shinshu minister. But he was not from temple family. Somehow he, decided to become a Jodo Shinshu priest. And then since he was not the temple family, he decided to become a Kaikyoshi minister, overseas minister. And then he was sent to Manchuria, I think 1937, 38-ish. Yeah. And then until the end of the war, he served a temple in Manchuria with my Ba-chan, grandmother. Yeah. So yeah, that is a kind of tough life, especially right after the end of war. Yeah. So people lived in Manchuria, especially right after the war. They need to, return to Japan. That is a really, really tough, trip back to Japan. And then even after they came back to Japan, nothing. Right after the World War II, there is nothing in Japan. So they started living in a small, like in Japanese we call it sekkyosho. This is not a temple, but like a community center or like a small chapel for listening to the Dharma. And then my grandparents started living in the sekkyosho, small like a temple chapel in Kure, Hiroshima. And then that's how they started the new temple. And then also they started, kindergarten or preschool. Yeah. And then, yeah, so they did a great, job, and they started my temple in Hiroshima. So when she passed away, we had a funeral service. You can see the picture of, so this is my temple in Hiroshima. And this is Onaijin. Yeah. And then at the, may I move around? So, ごめんなさい。hopefully, Zoom people can see that this, red dot. So this is my the portrait scroll of my Ji-chan, the grandfather. Since he was the first priest, minister of my temple, so that's why when he passed away, my temple decided to, show our appreciation, respect to him. So made a special, portrait and then hang on the kind of, side wall of the Hondo Naijin. And then, in the presence of Amida Buddha, and then, scroll of my Ji-chan. So we had a funeral service with a casket. In Japan, so this is a common practice to do like a kotsu hiroi. So after the cremation, after the funeral service, people who attend the funeral service go to a crematory. And then usually we wait maybe a couple hours to, the completion of cremation. And then after that, especially immediate family members, stay around the, this kind of tray with remains, ashes. And then this is my father, me, and then my younger brother. And then we pick, deceased remains, bones, and then put in the urn. This is we call kotsuhiroi after cremation. And then this tray and the bones are still really hot. And this is, in a sense, good education, what happened when we die. Yeah. And yeah, it's totally ashes and then, bones. And then usually, putting the, bones in the urn from the, leg, kind of going up. And then finally put the like a skull, like a, top of the urn. This is kind of piling up the, bone. But this is a kind of, I believe this is kind of good practice to, to see off our, loved ones at the end of life, after the cremation. So I put the passage of, white ashes, which we read in the Jodo Shinshu funeral service. If you have this, handout, maybe you can read the passage there. Yeah, the like I could you can read the whole passage since you have a handout, but I pick some passages lines. The first paragraph, life is impermanent like an illusion. Then second paragraph, there is no knowing whether I will die first or others, whether death will occur today or tomorrow. So many of you lived, life in this samsara for many years. So you know what it means. So this is totally true. The last paragraph, the fragile nature of human existence is such. Death comes to young and old alike without discrimination. That's true too. So Reine Shonin, the eighth abbot of he's there on the left side of the altar. So Reine Shonin encourages us. So we should all quickly take to heart the matter of the greatest importance of the afterlife, and trust ourselves deeply to Amida Buddha and recite the Nembutsu. So this is my another like I like this practice to recite white ashes in the Jodo Shinshu funeral service, especially kind of message to the attendees of the funeral service. So Shakyamuni Buddha. ごめんなさい、これ this is wrong. Not 2500 BC. I think should be 500 BC. Yeah, this is too, Shakyamuni Buddha is too far. ごめんなさい, I put the wrong number. Yeah, so one of the essential teachings of Buddhism is impermanence, the teaching of impermanence. So this is a quote from Dhammapada, the kind of collection of Shakyamuni Buddha's words. So all created things are transitory. All conditioned things are impermanent. So that is so-called teaching of impermanence. Then the point is the question is, how do we, how we should take this teaching? Is it just a knowledge? Is it just a information? Yeah. How seriously we take this teaching? So sometimes I mention this in my message, 170,000 a day, 170,000 a day. Maybe you can tell what this number is in this context. 170,000 a day. That is a number of people who die in their lives every day on this earth. So every moment, not every moment, every minute, about 6,000 people, they end their lives somewhere on this earth. Yeah. So maybe we have a 2-hour slot today, right? So in this 2-hour, seminar, somewhere on this earth, probably over 10,000 people, they, end their lives. Hopefully nobody in this room, right? But heart attacks, anything happens in this world. Yeah. So teaching of impermanence. Yeah. Once we are born in this world, someday we die. We may know, we understand that information knowledge here, but how seriously we take that truth teaching here. Yeah. So 170,000 a day is a kind of teaching of impermanence in number, and then can have more impact to our heart. Yeah. So witnessing this cremation, the reality of impermanence, yeah. And then being next to my bajans, yeah, my grandmother's, remains ashes. So I felt, or I realized the reality of impermanence more existentially, religiously, or psychologically, right? So that's why I said this is very kind of important, message or practice, yeah, for us to see the reality of impermanence in a more concrete way. And then again, this is not just the observing the reality of impermanence. Yeah. I'd say this is kind of lesson, yeah, guidance that I received from my bajan. Yeah. She herself showed me the reality of impermanence. And then at the same time, maybe bajan was talking to me, hey, Kiyo, this is your future. This is your future. Are you ready? Right? So Buddhism, like a teaching of impermanence, or like a dependent origination or interdependence. We have those kind of important teachings in Buddhism. But Buddha just observed the reality or things in this, right? So based on this observation or reflection of the reality of this world, then he encouraged us to take action, right? Receiving, deeply realizing the truth of impermanence, then each of us should think about, okay, how should I live my everyday life, right? So Buddhism always has to be followed by action, right? Action, not just observing the information, observing the situation or knowing the information. So then I received lessons from her. Then who was she? Who was my bacha? So let's say within the Buddhist context, right? When we look at things, depending on where you are. I mean, depending on where, what, standing point, perspective, views you take, maybe you see different things, or maybe you take a different interpretation. So the question, who was my Bachan? And then from Buddhist perspective or context, I'd say she was maybe Buddha or Bodhisattva to awaken me. Right? So then, now I'm going to talk about the Buddhist cosmology. So in Buddhism, we talk about hell, hungry ghost, animals, and then fighting spirit, and then human, and then heaven. And then generally speaking, Buddhism talks about this, 6 realms or samsara. And then this is a kind of realm of untruth or filled with impurities. So that's why we have to suffer, have trouble. So because we suffer, have troubles because of this untruth or impurities. So that's why, truth or ultimate truth or suchness kind of approaching to us, tries to, gives us a guidance. So this ultimate truth or suchness itself, whatever, oneness, there are many different, expressions, ultimate reality, right? So in some cases, we call it just nirvana, truth of realm of truth, which I'd say more metaphysical, approaches, right? Formless, but kind of less concrete expression or things. But in Buddhism, there are other forms or approaches to look at this ultimate truth or suchness, more like a Buddha's land or Buddha, right? So more concrete or symbolic manifestation or revelation of the ultimate truth, suchness, which is essentially formless or metaphysical. So then now I changed the top part. I was talking about from, within Buddhist context. Now let me move, on to the pure and Buddhist context. I cannot remove this top, Zoom bar, correct? To show the screen. ダメかな。これちょっと distracting ね。ごめんなさい。But anyway, so now let me move on to the like a pure and Buddhist context. Okay. So in the pure and Buddhist context, this ultimate truth, suchness, oneness, so in the form of, Amida Buddha's land, right? And then from this Buddha's land, then we are receiving a calling, we are receiving a guidance, right? We are receiving the support from this Buddha's land. Right? So this is me with a longer hair a couple of years ago. This is also another impermanence. So in the pure and Buddhist context, we are living in this 6th realm, samsara. And then traditionally speaking, once we complete this life, we go to Buddha's land, or we are born in Buddha's land. And then sometimes we say, people who pass away become a Buddha and then return to us, return to this world to guide us. So this is the structure, basic structure of pure and Buddhism, right? We are living in this samsara, and then we attain birth in the Buddha's land, and then returning, coming back to this world, right? Like a going and coming back. But sometimes people get confused with this going and back, right? And then sensei, that sounds like a Christianity too, right? So that's why let me talk a little bit about this, going and returning aspect. Okay, so we are living in this samsara, right? And then according to Buddhist cosmology, we are kind of transmigrating one after another, right? Endlessly. So this endless circulation or transmigration, it's like an inchworm crawling on the edge of bamboo, right? So when we cut the bamboo, then there's a kind of rim, and then which is a kind of circle, and then inchworm kind of endlessly circling on this edge. So one of the Indian masters in the Onaijin, we see the 7 masters facing left side. The third master, Tanlan, who was a Chinese Pure and monk, who Shinran Shonin received a lot of doctrinal information from Tanlan. So what is Pure Land? Who is Amida Buddha? So those philosophical doctrinal idea understanding comes from Tanlan to Shinran Shonin. And then, Danlan said, so we are like an inchworm, endlessly crawling on the, so somebody needs to pick, inchworm and then get out of this endless circulation. So this is the kind of idea of Buddhism too. So we are circulating, transmigrating these 6 realms endlessly. So we need to get out of this, samsara, because this is a realm of suffering. As long as we are here, we have to encounter, deal with all suffering, troubles, difficulties, So one idea is, okay, let's get out of this endless circulation, 6 realm. So maybe, revelation would be a one expression to describe what happens, right? We are kind of circulating, transmigrating this samsara, and then being liberated from this samsara, realm of suffering. And then in Japanese, we use the expression gedatsu. Gedatsu. So this is a kind of good, like 2 Chinese characters meaning release or relief or my escape, right? So maybe idea is we should get out of, be relieved, escape from this endless circulation, because this is the suffering. And then, Shakyamuni Buddha's start of his spiritual, journey was to deal with the suffering, right? That's how he left home. He was a, king prince, but he threw away everything. And then he decided to become a monk in order to discover the path to deal with the human suffering. So then now let me put a framework of Pure Land Buddhism. Okay. So this is more like a general idea in Buddhism, right? This is a very general, not specifically to Pure Land Buddhism. So this is a basic idea in Buddhism in general. And then let me put this idea within a framework of Pure Land Buddhism. Yeah. So I put here spatial or symbolic framework. As I said, ultimate truth. So especially Pure Land tradition, we use more symbols or concrete forms for better understanding or clearer understanding. So in that sense, okay, so once we get out of this 6th realm, so once we get out of somewhere, in other words, we are landing or arriving somewhere else, right? Because this is more like a spatial idea. So our kind of landing point, or maybe realm or area, we will arrive after, escaping or liberated from samsara. We call Pure Land or Buddha's land, based on this framework of symbolic or spatial idea. Okay. But I would say this is just rephrasing. And sometimes we, use an English like quote unquote, right? So this going to Buddha's land or attain birth in Buddha's land means kind of conventionally use those expressions, but the meaning, the point is we are liberated from samsara, and then we are, relieved from this samsara, and then our destination, landing point is ultimate truth, which is called Buddha's land in this spatial or symbolic framework. I'm showing a couple pictures of schools. Hiroshima University, IBS, Ryukok University, UC Berkeley, Stanford, Columbia, Harvard. So I can say, I went to those schools. Then my question is, what this, went to, or this expression means. When we say I went to those schools, what does it mean? Are we just talking about visiting those schools? Or, yeah, we went to those schools and then to study, right? So unfortunately, my brain is not smart enough to go to Stanford or Harvard or, those are very expensive schools, right? So yeah, I did visit, Cal, which is next to Jodo Shinshu Center. And then, I visited the Stanford, when I went to East Coast, I went to, visit Columbia and then Harvard. But I just went to Hiroshima University. As Miyaji Sensei introduced my bio, my undergrad was at Hiroshima University. And then after that, I went to Ryukok University to study Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu. And then after that, my advisor at the Ryukok University encouraged me to, go abroad to study, more about Jodo Shinshu or, see more things. So I came to IBS to study. So I went to these schools, and then, but when we use this kind of expression, but we are not just talking about physically visiting those schools, right? The meaning is we go to those schools to receive advanced education, which is kind of my sake, to benefit myself, right? I could expand, develop my knowledge and then, understanding. And then with that, development or expansion of knowledge, what happened? Then, once we, finish the school, we start working. We have to start work. Okay? And then the work is for what? Right? Of course, we need to, make money, but, with expertise, we can kind of, ongaishi, kind of return something to the community with, what we have learned. So I think this is a kind of expression, I went to Hiroshima University, I went to IBS, right? So this short, very simple expression, but practically speaking, we are talking about these things, or this expression contains those, two aspects, right? Then let me go back to this slide. Yeah. So when we go to Pure Land, what does it mean? So one sense, as I mentioned, so this means we are liberated from this samsara. And then, our kind of landing point because of this spatial framework structure. So that's why we are talking about, Buddha's land, kind of corresponding, those two, like a living place and a living landing point, right? So this is one idea of going or birth. But another approach idea is maybe, we go to Pure Land. We are not just talking about physically going somewhere, but a point is we attain birth, this, Buddha's land, and then we attain wisdom to become a Buddha. And then this wisdom is the source of our guidance to other people later. But now I'm talking about attaining wisdom, right? When we go to Pure Land or we attain birth in the Pure Land, we, according to Jodo Shinshu understanding, we become a Buddha. Yeah. To become a Buddha means we attain enlightenment or wisdom. And then let me ask these questions. So what is Buddhism? Yeah. So Buddhism is a teachings delivered by Shakyamuni Buddha, who was a historical Buddha in India about 2,500 years ago. Okay. And then another important point is we are not just following the teaching, appreciate the teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha, but with this teaching, we also try to become a Buddha, right? With the teaching guidance of Buddha, the teaching delivered by Shakyamuni Buddha, each of us, right, as a Buddhist, we try to become a Buddha. Okay? And then of course, we have to think about what the Buddha is or who Buddha is. Okay? Wisdom and compassion, or free from, three poisons, right? So those are the kind of goal. And then along with this, idea, so I would put another question: who is a Buddhist, right? So one who appreciates the teachings by Shakyamuni Buddha, or one who respects Shakyamuni Buddha because of the teaching that we receive, gift we receive, right? And then again, so Buddhist is one who also tries to or aspires to become a Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. Yeah. Because to become a Buddha means to be liberated from suffering. Right? So to become a Buddha is not just becoming, like a golden boy in a shining, or maybe like a chubby Buddha, right? That's not the, goal of Buddhism. Yeah. So more practically speaking, to become a Buddha means we are completely, perfectly liberated from suffering, difficulties, anxieties, stress, all those kind of things. Right? So in that sense, we kind of my benefit, right? We receive a great benefit or treasure by becoming a Buddha. And then especially this is more like a Mahayana Buddhist idea. Yeah. We are not just, being liberated from suffering difficulties myself, right? So since we receive a great benefit, treasure, so that's why we try to share that, gift guidance with other people, so that those who, others who are also, having a suffering difficulties can be liberated from this, cycle of, suffering, right? So this is a guiding others, still in suffering. So this is like a compassion side. So this is a Buddhism. And then I said this is a very important framework of context. Yeah. So at the Jodo Shinshu temples, we talk about Amida Buddha, or primal vow, Shinjin, Nembutsu, Pure Land, all those things. But if we try to understand them, right, Amida Buddha, Pure Land, primal vow, what are they, right? Kind of totally ignoring this, context, or without this context, when we try to understand them, I'm sure I know it's really difficult, right? But if we have this, framework, right? Okay, so Buddhism is for me to become a Buddha. Okay, so Buddhist, to become, Buddha, and then to become a Buddha is a liberation from suffering, and then also give a guidance to others who are still in suffering. If we try to understand who Amida Buddha is, or what the primal vow is, or why there is a pure, or why we talking about the other power, right? What is Nembutsu, Shinjin? So if we try to those, Jodo Shinshu essentials within this context, I'm sure you have less difficulties. I think it's much easier to understand who Amida Buddha is, what is primal vow. All those things are connected or to achieve them. So that's how, we can have a better or deeper understanding, or maybe essential understanding of those, Jodo Shinshu essentials. So that's why I think this, framework context is very, very important. Okay, so let me move on another slide and then have a break. So I started my presentation with this question. And well, where will we go when I die? And my question was crematory. But now more, as a Jodo Shinshu perspective, I would say, so we will go to Amida Buddha's Pure again. So I just, quoted. So means not that just we are talking about the physically going, more like we have to think about being reminded what we are talking about. So to be liberated, so when we go to Pure means we are liberated from samsara and then attain Buddhahood. And then once we do so, then the next step we should take is to give a guidance our loved ones, friends suffering in this samsara. And then so I'd say this is Amida Buddha's compassionate project. This is Amida Buddha's salvific project. And then this is, I would say, primal vow. This is Buddha's wish, aspiration. Hi. So this is a kind of first, half of like a going aspect of Pure. Hi. So I think it's like a 10 to 4. Shall we have like a 10 minutes break? はい。ありがとうございました。Thank you very much. Thank you for switching the microphone. これで良くなると思います。はい。はい。ということでね。Yeah, we have another another 6 minutes あるんで。it seems I can finish my handout today. I did a good job. I've done a good job so far, I think. And then,はい。Then, yeah, first part we talking about going and then returning, and then I just talked about the going aspect. Go to Amida Buddha's Pure. And then, but again, so we shouldn't get stuck with this, idea, expression go to. This means, essentially liberation from suffering, attaining Buddhahood, and then, giving providing a guidance to those who, still in suffering, especially our loved ones, friends. So that is the meaning. And then, so now I'm going to kind of, this is a transition, like a going aspect and the returning aspect. And as I talked about the impermanence, once we are born in this world, someday we need to end or complete our lives this world. But I think death is a big topic, issue for many of us. How to deal with the issue of death, my own death, and then also the death of our loved ones. This is a really tough issue. And then in the Jodo Shinshu context, our Pure and Buddhist context, so we will, with the death, we will complete the life or in the circulation, transmigration of death, with death. And then, of course, if we do not know what will happen next, anxiety, or maybe since we need to leave, maybe we feel sort of sadness, right? But as I showed, according to Pure and Buddhist idea, we kind of attain birth in the Pure and go to the Buddha's land and then become a Buddha. That means we could say we will start a new life as a Buddha. We just complete life in samsara. And then with the death, kind of we start a new life as a Buddha to give a guidance. And then, so this teaching, especially for those who have difficulties, anxiety, stress, of like a separation, may, gives us some sort of hope or strength to deal with those, sadness or, anxieties. So sometimes I use this, analogy or my idea. So this is a picture of my oldest son, Takato. He's now senior at the Berkeley High. And this is a picture of his elementary school graduation. So after, completing 5 years, 6 years at the elementary school, they had a graduation. So graduation, this is the end of elementary school. I think most of us, experienced graduation, which is kind of last day of school and then with our friends, right? Of course, we have a, sadness, and then, so what will happen when we go to, middle school or like high school, right? So sadness, anxiety, we have some kind of, mixed feeling within ourselves. But with this graduation, kids, we, move forward to the next stage of our life, middle school. So maybe I think something, this is a kind of another idea of kind of transition, completing life in this world. And then we kind of move forward, move on to the next stage of our life as a Buddha. So that's how, this is a kind of approach of the Pure and Buddhism, how to deal with, accept or overcome the anxiety or difficulties of death. So now, I've just talked about the going aspect within this Pure and Buddhist, framework. So now I would like to continue on to the next, another aspect of returning. So returning, as I said, once we attain birth in the Pure Land, we become a Buddha. So Buddha, doesn't mean we just, become, something, somebody, right? But more practically speaking, we attain wisdom, or maybe kind of source of our guidance. And then with this wisdom, we kind of provide guidance other people. So I put this like a returning aspect from Pure Land, I would say like a practice of compassion. This is one of the Shinran Shonin's hymns. Shinran Shonin composed many, many hymns, poems. In Japanese, we call wasan. And this is one of them. He said, those who reach the Pure Land of tranquility return to this samsaric world of the 5 defilements, where like the Buddha Shakyamuni, they benefit sentient beings without limit. 安楽浄土に至る人、五濁悪世に帰りては、釈迦牟尼仏のごとくにて、衆生利益は極もなし。利益衆生ですね。利益衆生は極もなし。So, came to the United States and then being a Jodo Shinshu ministers, I've received kind of many questions about sensei. So how do they come back, right? So when we say return from the Pure Land, and how do they, come back? That is a very good question. So I would say this is Shinran Shonin. coming to me. And this sutra, the Buddhist scripture, this is Shakyamuni Buddha returning to us. What does it mean? So Shinran Shonin, he was a Japanese Buddhist monk, lived in the 12th century in Japan. We are living 21st century in the United States. So time, place, totally, we're different. But we can meet Shinran Shonin. I say with this, this is my Shoshinge book. So every morning, we have Sato さんなんかと、at the Jodo Shinshu Center, we have a Shoshinge sutra chanting. So Shoshinge is a short gatha, a passage composed by Shinran Shonin. And then Shinran Shonin put the all essence, important teaching of Jodo Shinshu in this Shoshinge gatha. So in the service, as we chant, recite this Shoshinge, we read what Shinran Shonin wrote. And then to me, this is Shinran Shonin himself, right? During his 90-year life, he encountered the Dharma, he encountered the Honen Shonin, and then ups and downs, his life experience. And all those experiences kind of, led him, many causes and conditions led him to the deep appreciation of the Dharma, Amida Buddha's compassion. And then his appreciation, joy of Dharma, he put it into all those words, right? So I would say those words are Shinran Shonin in the form of language, words. Shakyamuni Buddha too. Again, I put the wrong number here. But Shakyamuni Buddha, he lived in India about 2,500 years ago. And then, so he attained enlightenment. After the, attaining enlightenment, he is just hesitated, wondered, should I share this with other people, or should I just, enjoy this, wonderful enlightenment by myself? But he decided to share these words of wisdom, enlightenment, to, with other people, so that other people can be liberated from the suffering. Other people can receive the guidance or find a way to be liberated from the life of suffering, right? And then to do so, he dedicated his, rest of his life to share the Dharma. Although Shakyamuni Buddha himself didn't write anything by himself, but the followers, disciples who received the Shakyamuni Buddha's guidance, words of wisdom, they put, Shakyamuni Buddha's words, spirit teaching onto this, scripture. So we, by reading those, Shakyamuni Buddha's words in the scriptures, that's how we can listen to the voice of Shakyamuni Buddha. Although physically he is not here, but spiritually, religiously, existentially, we can listen to the voice of Shakyamuni Buddha here and now. My ba-chan. Yeah, she was a very devout, Buddhist Jodo Shinshu Nembutsu follower. After Ji-chan passed away, she was kind of lived by herself. Morning, evening, she had a, なんていうかな、お参り, morning service, evening service, went to, Obutsudan home altar. And then, yeah, she really enjoyed, yeah, she always recited the name Butsu Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu. So, yeah, she really enjoyed this Nembutsu teaching. And then whenever I remember her, so the voice of Nembutsu, her smile, comes to my mind. So whenever I remember her, I receive something warm within myself. So how do they return to us? This is a kind of question. But I would say this is a kind of Jodo Shinshu mindfulness. We are living a life surrounded by Buddha, Bodhisattvas, or maybe Dharma. It's up to us how we kind of carefree or mindfully, notice, discover all those guidance Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharmas around us, right? So if we have a, mindful enough, maybe we can discover, realize, how many guidance or Buddhas, Bodhisattvas around us. So, again, we can see Shinran Shonin Shakyamuni Buddha. So that's why, when we open the Sutra service book, we show respect to the book. If people, for those who, the service book is just a paper, just a book, maybe they don't pay respect. But for us, we Buddhists, that is Shakyamuni Buddha in the form of language, book. So that's why we show our respect to that book. So depending on, how we see things or how sensitive we are, mindful we are, we can find more treasures, Buddha's guidance, Dharmas all around us. So I say that is Jodo Shinshu mindfulness. So I'd say that is our, returning, talking about from the land of Buddha's land, realm of, nirvana, Buddha's bodhisattvas, all around us, and then try to provide us a guidance. So to me, Pure Land is a kind of source of guidance. Like plant, receive the sunlight from the sun, and then being nurtured. So in the same way, from the Buddha or from the Pure Land, we, as a sentient beings or Bonbu living in this samsara, and then but we receive the guidance or light from the land of, Amida Buddha's land. So, today's topic was significance of the Pure Land. So I think there are to me, there are basically two things. So one thing is, so although we say going to the Pure Land, Buddha's land, but essentially, it means we are being liberated from this life of samsara, and then attain, enlightenment, Buddhahood in this, Buddha's land. So this is where we attain, wisdom, or we receive the source of guidance afterwards. And then another thing is maybe returning aspect. So we're not gonna stay, at the Pure Land. I know this is a nice place, should be a nice place, but they have to leave because there are still so many people suffering, having a hard time. So leaving the Pure Land and then returning and then try to provide a guidance so that people, those who are suffering in this samsara, can find a way to get out of the life in samsara. So that's how we practice compassion. So in that sense, source of guidance, that is another aspect of the importance, significance of Pure Land. So this is the last slide for today. So Shinran Shonin, this is at the very beginning of the Kyogyo Shinsho, his main work, the true teaching, practice, realization of the Pure Land way, Kyogyo Shinsho. He said, reverently contemplating the true essence of the Pure Land way, I see that Amida's directing virtue to sentient beings has two aspects. The aspect for our going birth to the Pure Land, and the aspect for our return to this world. In the aspect for going forth, there is true teaching, practice, shinjin, and realization. So the passage here Shinran Shonin talking about is, we talked about other power. So we attain birth and then also returning to provide benefit other people. All those are possible because of Amida Buddha's preparation, coordination. We don't have to make self-effort, but the Amida prepared everything. And then all those virtues encapsulated into Namo Amidabutsu. This short phrase carries everything. Like a vaccine. Sometimes I use it because of COVID-19, right? And then pandemic started. All researchers, pharmacists, doctors, engineers, government politicians, they made every effort to invent this small dose, small liquid of vaccine, right? So when we get a shot, it's just a small, like an amount of, clear liquid. But to have this clear liquid, there are innumerable number of people made a great, huge effort. And those effort, kind of wish, hope was encapsulated into small dose of, vaccine. So Namo Amida Butsu, just 6 Chinese character. But this 6 Chinese character Namo Amida Butsu carries, Buddha's or all bodhisattvas wish for us to be liberated from this world. And then we receive Namo Amida Butsu and then say, Namo Amida Butsu, recite and then Butsu. Then this is, how Amida Buddha tries to achieve this whole, compassionate, I said the project, Amida Buddha's compassionate project. So this is a Jodo Shinshu teaching. はい、ありがとうございます。Okay, so thank you for listening for over, almost 90 minutes. So you have maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You ask a question or comment to my presentation, or any, topic question is okay. Since we have a Miyaji Sensei here today, so if I don't know the answer, I could ask Miyaji Sensei. よろしくお願いします。Please help me. はい。Any question, comment? 大丈夫? Yes. いや、はい。あ、そうか。そうね。
You repeat that one more time? Okay. So the question is, to be a good Buddhist, should we be thinking about compassion, wisdom, and compassion every minute, every second, every hour? Is the question for the Zoom folks.
ありがとうございます。Thank you very much. This is a very good question. Very important question, especially for Jodo Shinshu Buddhist. Yeah, because we always talking about the jiriki and the tariki. If if we do something, oh, that's jiriki kind of thing, right? So, but I think, when I came to the US, especially when beginning, there are so many contracts and forms that I need to sign to set up my life, right? And then that form, it says like to the best of my knowledge, right? Somehow that phrase kind of came to my mind, right? So I think, especially Jodo Shinshu Buddhist way of life is, okay, so let's do our best, right? So Jodo Shinshu is not talking about, oh, you don't have to do anything. Not that kind of, negative teaching. But of course, we should do our best, to, be compassionate as much as we can, or to try to follow or practice the, Buddha's wisdom as much as we can. But at the same time, Jodo Shinshu uniqueness or kind of character is we also know we are not perfect enough. My sensei is a Umezu sensei, and the Umezu sensei always said, we are perfectly imperfect. I like that phrase, right? So although we do our best, but at the same time, we, somewhere in our mind, oh, okay, so we are, perfectly imperfect. So in that sense, when we make some mistake, something wrong, we kind of, humbly, apologize. That kind of attitude comes from us. But at the same time, to the best of our knowledge, well, we try to do our best. I think that kind of, balance is the Jodo Shinshu way of life to try to be a good Buddhist or a good person. Yeah. So especially the aspect of like, acknowledging we are perfectly imperfect is, to my understanding, very Jodo Shinshu approach, especially compared with other Buddhist tradition. So I think other Buddhist tradition more like a pushing more, try to be, as best as you can. You have to be a good person. But Amida Buddha also know, like I have 3 boys. Okay, I have 3 boys. and then looking them, of course, I want them to be perfect. But as a parent, I know they are not perfect, right? So that's why when they make a mistake, they did something wrong, I could help them. So I think Amida Buddha has the same idea or attitude or approach. Now, of course, as a Buddhist, it's nice. Best we can be perfect, but at the same time, we are not. The Buddha also knows we are not perfect, so that's why, yeah, that is a very compassionate side of Amida Buddha. Kind of embrace us, who we are, whatever we do. Yeah. So that's why. But at the same time, there's a Jodo Shinshu teaching like a licensed evil, right? Okay, so Amida Buddha, saves us wherever we are, whatever we commit, down. Then we take advantage of that aspect, compassionate aspect of Amida Buddha. And then some people intentionally commit the, wrong thing. But that is totally misunderstanding with Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Yeah. Is that, do I answer your question, comment? 大丈夫? Or Miyaji Sensei, since he's a specialist of Jodo Shinshu ethics,
So the question is, does it mean that we're perfect if we reach nirvana or the Pure Land?
So in Buddhism, there are, so symbolically, we call 84,000 Dharma gates. So as long as we are Buddhist, our goal is one, to become a Buddha, to attain enlightenment and nirvana. And then it's like, sometimes I use the idea of like, okay, let's go to San Diego from here. So to go to San Diego from here, there are many different options, right? We can take a flight, going to maybe SFO or Oakland Airport, or maybe we can take a Greyhound long distance bus, or maybe we can have a cruise ship from San Francisco down to San Diego, or a bicycle. If we are healthy or strong enough, we can ride a bicycle, or maybe hitchhike. We can drive, right? So one destination, there are many different options depending on our situation, right? So I think Buddhism too. So Jodo Shinshu, Pure Land Buddhism is a kind of part of options to attain enlightenment, to reach the nirvana. And then especially Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, we call Pure Land Buddhism. One idea is it is quite difficult to attain enlightenment, to become a Buddha or nirvana within this world, with this body, right? So that's why one idea is we reach nirvana or attain perfect enlightenment after completing this life or after liberating this samsaric world. So, but that doesn't, discourage us, even though, as I said, we can do our best to live our everyday life, kind of making, progress toward the, enlightenment. So, yeah, I think even though we cannot attain the perfect nirvana, but in our everyday life, we, can do our best to live as a Buddhist. So I think, yeah, that is a way, way to live with the Dharma, yeah. Yeah. Or also another, perspective is, what is a perfect or what is like a good and bad, right? So we have to be, good person to attain enlightenment. We have to be, like a good Buddhist or bad Buddhist or good person, bad person. And then sometimes, Buddhism question, then what is good? What is bad? Right? So we say we should do good thing. And then this good thing is kind of something relative, I would say, depending on the situation. Sometimes what we do can be labeled as a good or favorable thing. But from other people, other perspective, same things, we can, evaluate as a negative or bad thing or unfavorable thing. So that is another kind of difficulty of, I think this is a part of Miyaji Sensei's, kind of specialty area of like ethics or like what is good, what is bad, to be a good Buddhist or good Buddhist in the course of our practice or like a process of becoming enlightenment or nirvana. Yeah. So that's why I like the idea of to the best of my knowledge. So this is Kodani Sensei's phrase, ね、Mas Kodani Sensei Senshin ね。So we are Buddhists because we are not Buddha yet, right? We are Buddhists, we are not Buddha yet. So that means, if Buddha can know, enlighten, can have a good knowledge or understanding of everything. But since we are Buddhists, we are not perfect enough. So that's why we do our best. To the best of our knowledge, we make a kind of some, so this is a spring じゃなくて fall お彼岸 we invited the Motoyoshi Sensei to the Berkeley Buddhist temple. Then in the message, Dharma message, Motoyoshi Sensei said, waking up in the morning, every day we make tons of choice, selection in the course of, everyday life, so waking up morning, should I open my eyes or should I wake up or stay? So every moment we humans kind of have to make a choice, what kind of action we should take. So then, continuous, kind of selection, choice of actions, and then do we live with Dharma or not? And then when we make a choice, we try to better or best choice to the best of our knowledge, or maybe under the light of Buddha or Dharma. Yeah. But of course, sometimes our mind is knowledge is limited and our capacity is limited. But yeah, so that's why we try to do our best is a kind of, and then if we have that kind of attitude idea, then what is right, what is wrong is also kind of we can accept the kind of flexibility, of kind of ambiguity of this word or kind of value, so ね、one time, after eating dinner or something, I had some leftovers and I put in the, to-go box. And then, going out of a restaurant. And then I found a homeless person. And then I gave a, bag to him. And then he received it, opened it, checked the inside. And then he said, I don't want this. And he gave it back to me. And I kind of, my reaction, I got upset. How come, this guy, returned, I thought I'm doing a right thing. I'm doing, like practicing compassion to this, homeless guy. But this guy opened the, bag and then returned it to me. And then, I totally got upset. But again, my mind is kind of limited. Maybe the food in the bag could be like he had an allergy or something. If he has a homeless and then no like a medical, thing, once he got a reaction, this is a very terrible thing. Or maybe just because he didn't like it, I don't know. But we always take action based on my knowledge, my, decision discernment, and then which is different from the, other people, right? So again, I did, think to the best of my knowledge, but I had a kind of result or reaction which was different from my expectation, right? So is that my issue or that guy's issue? So from Buddhist perspective, that is this guy's issue. So I totally had a story, scenario. Okay, if I give this thing, this guy says thank you. And then I think, I did a good thing. That is the kind of my scenario, I had within my expectation that I had within my mind. But, that's totally my story, my bakatare, kind of foolishness or my ignorance, right? And then that is also another kind of definition of suffering in Buddhism. When things do not go as we expect, as we wish, that is a suffering, defined in Buddhism too, right? So, and then that is totally my ignorance, my, narrow view, self-centeredness. So in that sense, again, so when somebody, in need, of course we should help. But important point is, period. We shouldn't expect or something after that, expecting thank you or somebody, oh, Kuwahara sensei, いいことしたね, you did a good thing, kind of, don't expect that kind of thing. But that part is really difficult. We have more or less attachment, right? So this kind of attachment or kind of self-centeredness always, bothered us, kind of defile our pure act. So Shinran Shonin is the one who very honestly disclosed what we have within ourselves. So that's why I love Shinran Shonin. He's very honest. And then I can find the same thing in myself, right? Other Buddhism try to remove all those things. But the Jodo Shinshu, first, we have to be honest to ourselves. Each of us have to be honest to ourselves, look into ourselves in the light of Amida Buddha, and then what do we see? That is Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. And then there we can truly start changing our life. To be honest, I was surprised when, came to the US, and then it's very rare to have a service ceremony at the crematory. So usually we have a cremation, I said, back there. And then, family members, they receive urn after, cremation, nice, urn, right? So usually people in the US don't see the, like a stove and then all those cremation process. But sometimes, we ministers are invited to, next to the oven and then have a service. And then, yeah, here in the United States, the, oven, is it okay to say oven or crematory oven? Yeah, big, yeah. It's very simple. Like, kind of, kind of behind, somewhere. So kind of sometimes messy, not so clean. I don't know, 散らかってるってなんて言えばいいかな. Yeah, kind of messy, dirty place. But in Japan, it's really fancy, nice place. Yeah, kind of old marble, and then really nice because, yeah. So usually we have a funeral service at the temple or like a funeral home, and then we move to the crematory place, and then there is usually have another service like a last service before we put the body into the oven. And then of course, that is a last moment for us to see the deceased physically, right? Our ba-chan, ji-chan, parents, or spouse, or maybe child, last time to see our loved one physically. So many of us, that is a very, very important moment. So once we push the body casket into the oven and then start the bottom, and then the next time we see them, it's I show the like ashes and the bones, nothing like no physical thing body. だからね, I think, yeah, many Japanese people, I think that is a very, very important and emotional moment. ね. Yeah. I heard a comment, about this Japanese custom practice for us to witness the cremation process because it sounds like a very brutal or maybe harsh. Some people like losing a child or maybe loved one, and they have to see the remains all ashes, right? So maybe grief, maybe emotionally, psychologically, for some people, maybe too harsh, too difficult. Maybe, yeah, I understand that. But also another approach perspective is some people say, because we've witnessed everything, right? Kind of, die after die, we have you can't kind of washing bodies, you can't, yeah, cleaning, yeah, body. So family members, once we die, family members clean up the body. And then one night or two nights, we kind of, stay together. And then funeral service, and then cremation. That's how we gradually accept the loss of our loved ones. So in that sense, maybe to attend, cremation itself is maybe another kind of process to deal with, or maybe accept the kind of loss of our loved ones, physically. 네. So I don't know, this part is, grief care or grief, process. Maybe I think it depends, who, they are. Yeah. But I witnessed my Ji-chan, Ba-chan both, like this, kotsuhiroi picking up bones. 네, yeah, I think, yeah, to me, good experience, maybe good, yeah, process, 네, to, okay, now Ba-chan is gone, So no, so because no body, and then the body became a ash or bones on the tray. That is a kind of very clear, kind of distinct, very distinctive kind of change, transformation, transition. Yeah. So that is a kind of maybe helped myself to accept or know she's gone physically. Yeah.
So the question is, it used to be that you would, be there with the deceased person for a number of days, and then you would carry out services. So, how many days is that typically? Is the question, right? Okay.
This is my another big surprise came to the US is yeah, usually funeral service is kind of really after many days of people die. So sometimes couple weeks, sometimes not couple months, but like a month or 2 months later. I know people live kind of far away, so maybe family needs to get together to coordinate their like whole schedule. Yeah, that's understandable. But Japan, だから死んだらまず通夜 wake, yeah, on the usually day of night or the evening of the next day at latest, we have a wake otsuya service. And then the next day of tsuya or wake service, there is a funeral service. So usually within 2 days or 3 days, we have a funeral service. And then right after the funeral service, we send their body to cremation. So in Japan, really, yeah, quick. Yeah. So I don't know, this is good or bad, but this is a practice in Japan. Yeah. Yeah, 7 days or maybe 49th day or maybe 1 year. Yeah. But I think nowadays, not many family follow this practice or tradition. Yeah. I think 1 year still popular, but yeah, seventh, like a first seventh day, second seventh day, up until seventh day, which is the 49th day. Yeah, that is a kind of practice or custom tradition, but yeah, nowadays very, less, family members, observe that tradition or customs. Yeah. Oh, so 100 もあるね。Yeah, right. Yeah, there is a 100. Yeah, 100日ね in Japanese. Yeah, 100-day service too. Yeah. Yeah, だから my case ね。So I was already here in the United States when my ばあちゃん grandmother passed away. で、I missed the wake tsuya service, but I could make it to the funeral service. Although I had to pay a lot to, get the air ticket because I need to buy the, ticket next day. So, but so that's why I could take a picture of, those Bachan's funeral service.
Sorry, thank you, Sensei, for showing those pictures. Actually, that's actually a pretty intimate setting. I mean, to get that, yeah, to be able to do that too, I think is very rare. But I've had an experience of doing that too, when my aunt passed away, and doing that, and that's I heard that's why that how like in Japanese table manners, you can't pass the huashi from one person to another. That's considered really rude. It comes from that. It comes from that because they do that. You pass it from family member to family member because you stand in a row, and then you pass it from each other, and then the last person puts it into the urn, and then for in our case, the cremator, the person who did it, explained to us this is the femur, or this is the Adam's apple, or something like that. It was like different things, and this is part, and then the last, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So it is very kind of an intense, but it brought me closure. I thought it was a very very important step in the death process. Yeah, so it's yeah. Yeah, because it really is like this is it. Like this, the body is no longer here anymore. Yeah. Uh, uh, did you-
But the chapel chime, what they did was they let us, my sister and I, to be there, and they even so we watched till last minute till after my father went in, and then they even said, "You want to push the button?" So I don't know because they realized that we were Japanese, that maybe Japanese will do like that. So I was very appreciative that they called us, that is, they're ready to put my father in earnest. And so I think if that's what you want, then you probably could ask the, especially in chapel chime. Yeah. It's also, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then during this COVID time, there was a long wait, so that you have to wait till the turn because there's so many deaths when happen. So my father was passed away in 2018, so right before that. But then even then, there was a waiting period. So he was that in those what do you call that, ice? No, not that. Well, I guess it's very refrigerated too. So he was cold, but then nothing was changed. It's like looked like he was still sleeping, even though like 10 days or even about 2 weeks later, there is cremation. So, but in Japan, they do have a formality, and we all wait 2 hours of burn, and then we pick up. Right. But then, yeah, you really feel this end.
yeah. Skull? Oh, yeah. So the question was, what happens to not to be morbid, as Paul says, well, what happens to like the skull and parts that are like obvious of what part of the body that was?
You mean their skull stays? You mean like putting into the urn? No, just a part, ここだけかな? Part of, yeah, like a top, like a, なんていうの、この like a curved part. Yeah, when my ばあちゃん, yeah, yeah, 係員の人ってなんて、yeah, and then so the bones are kind of different size, within our body. So sometimes, like ここ大腿骨ってなんていうの? Hi, yeah. So sometimes they break and they make it a little bit smaller so that fit in the urn. And then skull too, maybe if it is too big, kind of a little bit, break it, and then to make it a little bit, size to fit in the, size of, urn. Then, yeah, that's how we Mhm.
But I did experience, but it was amazing. That they'll crack it for you, and then they say, okay, this is the thigh, or this is the uh, the ribs and stuff. So then you pass it on, right? And then they tell you exactly what they are. But then now that it's chemicals or the burning, the temperature they use, that they know exactly how well, depends on the size, the weight of the person. And then it's like this person going to be maybe, I don't know, I was like a 2 hours or 1 hours or something like that, so that the bone will be. And then they were saying that a certain person is just a really big bone, even though there's a small person or something like that. But I mean, that's very not things that, but that's what I've experienced, and I thought it was really amazing that what they did. Yes.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it's most schools of Buddhism will participate in this. That's what I suspect, because it's just I mean, if you go to the crematorium, it's already set up like that for. So I don't think it's just for Jodo Shinshu families. I think, like, a lot of other schools of Buddhism do the same way. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Kyle. Did people on Zoom catch that? Oh, okay. So Kyle's question is, so that Sensei mentioned that through, like, the chanting, Shinran Shonin comes back to us through us. And is it okay to understand it that when we chant or when we say Namo Amida Butsu, that our loved ones are coming back to us? Is that how we can understand it? That's your question. I got your question. Okay.
Yeah, that's what as I use their chanting book or service book, talking about that is Shinran Shoni in the form of, like language, or Shakyamuni Buddha in the form of language or book. So to me, that is one of the Buddhist teaching of emptiness. I mean, okay, so if you have this is a cell phone, right? If I throw it to somebody, I can harm somebody, right? And then if I use like a cell phone or a computer accessing internet, right? So things has like a basic function depending on how we use it. It has a kind of, has a different function. We can use it different way. And then anything in this world, depending on how we interpret, how we use it, it has a kind of, has a kind of flexibility, right? So as I mentioned, service book is just a paper, just a book. But if we Buddhists read, service book, oh, this is Shakyamuni Buddha's words, or Shakyamuni Buddha is talking to me through this book, then, oh, this is very important book, right? So I think everything has a kind of basically neutral, depending on how we see them, how we evaluate them, then we can find something, very deep, profound within it. That's because everything doesn't have any like absolute meaning, absolute, value there, right? So I think that is the one idea of like an emptiness. Nothing carries kind of absolute entity or absolute value. So depending on how, and then like this scroll too, for some people, this is just art. For Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, this is our object of worship. So depending on how we see them, then things can flexibly change the meaning and the value. So in that sense, yeah, to me, you are kind of bodhisattvas, listening to my presentation today, right? So although you are, in a sense, you are just, human beings, but to me, you are here and then asking me questions. The questions comment deepen my understanding of Dharma. So in that sense, you could be a bodhisattva, like to expand, deepen my appreciation, understanding of Dharma. Yeah. So when we see things in that way, as I said, we are live our everyday life surrounded by many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, even like our enemies. One sense, we could say, oh, they are my enemies. They're terrible guys. But in a sense, we can learn something from that person, right? So again, yeah, depending on, who I am or how we think, around us, then yeah, we see, this world totally different way. I think that is the, yeah, Buddhist, I think life of a Buddhist, I would say, ね。Yeah, だから it's very difficult to see things as they are. Yeah, sometimes we say like, like a light, like see things as they are, but we always kind of filter, see things with my, and then the filter distort or kind of change what we are seeing. Like, so but it's not difficult. It's difficult to remove all those filters and then see things as they are. Yeah. But when you can do so, you are Buddha. Yeah. But if not, you are not Buddha yet. Yeah.
And he's telling me to speak to the mic. So, my mother-in-law passed away during the pandemic, and we go visit her gravesite when we're visiting Los Angeles. And my father-in-law, he really kind of, to me, embodies, Buddhist teachings. When we take him, he always, we offer the flowers, and we always chant Jusei. And he always, to me, he makes a comment that it just sticks with me is something to live by. He goes, and I hope you're okay with me sharing. He goes, we can't see you, but you can see us. So I thought that was very enlightening to hear something like that. So I just want to share that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. ありがとうございます。
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sharing that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. ね、本当。Yeah, that's ね, how we continue our lives ね, in there. Yeah, spirit of, no, spirit. I don't know, this is not, spirit, but, like a heart or mind of the deceased, within ourselves. Or maybe we are in the big warm embrace of our, loved one who passed away before us. Yeah, so we can, continue our life. Yeah, and yeah, and then the, guidance, love, embrace, to my understanding, coming from, Pure Land or realm of truth or nirvana. Yeah. We are receiving all those guidance, love, embrace from there. And so that's how we can continue our lives, yeah, with hope or strength in this world. Yeah. ありがとうございます。Thank you, Kyle, for sharing that.
Oh, yeah. So the question is, if I was a rotten person, can I still get to the Pure Land?
Yeah, you are the main target of Amida Buddha. Yeah, but if you're a really bad, terrible person, the person doesn't even notice that yet, right? So, and then how did you notice that? And then I think, yeah, in Jodo Shinshu, we talk about the akunin shoki. So the evil person, bad person is the main object, target of Amida Buddha. That is the teaching of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. And then what does it mean? And then, yeah, my ba-chan, her 口癖ってなんて言うんだろうな。habit, speaking habit is washa warujake no. Maybe English translation would be like, I'm such a terrible person. That's what she always says. Yeah. And then, I like that phrase, but I think that is another kind of uniqueness of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Washa warujake no, I'm such a terrible person. We try to be nice person. We try to conceal, hide our, bad things to other people. Yeah. But we can say, Jodo Shinshu Buddhists say, I'm such a bad person. Yeah. So one thing is, so we are not, accusing, pointing people, oh, that guy is a bad person. That guy is terrible, right? But when we say something like that, 3 fingers pointing myself, hey, Kiyo, how about you? Right? And then if we look at ourselves or reflect upon ourselves humbly, honestly, deeply in the light of Dharma, maybe I'm the worst one in the world, right? So each of us can look into ourselves, kind of deep inside of our heart. Then you can see something very bad, very terrible, maybe. So Shinran Shonin, he thought, I'm the worst of the worst. Although he was a Buddhist monk for 20 years at the Mount Hiei, and then he was followed by many followers and disciples, right? But still, Shinran Shonin, he composed the なんて言えばいいかな。So Shinran Shonin composed, as I said, many hymns, and then this is the one group of hymn in Japanese, Hitan Jikai Wasan, Gutoku's hymns of lament and reflection. Yeah, extremely difficult is it to put an end to our evil nature. The mind is like a venomous snakes and scorpion. Our performance of a good act is also poisoned. Hence, it is called false and empty, practice. Yeah. Although I'm without shame and self-reproach. So this part of Wasan hymn is very strong, like talking about, kind of nature or things within himself. And then, so as I said, he thought he was worst of the worst. And although, again, so he was a, wonderful, great monk, over 20 years, practice at the Mount Hiei, followed by many people as a master or teacher. But he knew who he was in the light of Dharma. Yeah. And then, but there is a Buddha who knows how bad I am. And then because of this guy, so that's why Amida established the most, perfect, solution for this, but such a one terrible guy. If I need to fulfill all those requirements, all those, Buddhist practice, have to perform perfectly, successfully, I cannot make it. So that's why this, terrible guy, Amida Buddha, is the most simple, easiest way of just saying Namo Amida Butsu, right? So, to truly understand why Amida established the easy path, such a simple practice, just saying Namo Amida Butsu. This simplicity corresponds to the terribleness or horribleness myself, right? So that is a kind of part of listen to the Dharma in the Jodo Shinshu tradition. Listen to the Dharma Jodo Shinshu tradition is not just absorbing the Buddhist stories or knowledge ideas. As we deeply listen to the Dharma, we realize, discover who I am, what's in it myself. And then still, and yet, this Buddha or Dharma tries to embrace, this guy, my horribleness. So that is the point of Jodo Shinshu listening, deep listening. Yeah. And then that's how, we kind of try act or live or differently. Yeah. once I realized how terrible I am, and then that realization, awareness push me to the kind of opposite, different direction of the way I live. That's how Jodo Shinshu Buddhism Dharma changing the way how I say, how I think, how I behave in our everyday life. And then that is Shinjin too. Not believing in Amida Buddha. So Shinjin is to realize who I am with the guidance or in the light of Amida Buddha. And then that's the awareness or even like a, shame, like to shame myself is a kind of main drive to change us. So that's how Dharma or Jodo Shinshu Buddhism changing the way we, our everyday life. はい、すみません、ごめんなさい。
Okay, thank you very much. I think it has come to the time. So I appreciate all of your participation today. We're very grateful for coming today on a Saturday and listening to the Dharma on a much kind of on a deeper level where we can have a little bit more of an intimate setting and ask questions in a little bit more of a frank manner. I think these settings are very important because, it's different from a Sunday service, right? Sunday service is, it's hard as a minister. There's a wide demographic here, and I gotta go the middle, and then it's gotta be like funny, and then I can't have to make people keep up with it and not fall asleep, and so it's hard. But when it comes to settings like this, we can have a little bit more like, wait a minute, what do you mean by dying, and what does ojodo mean, and you could kind of ask these questions, and then again, when we go out to dinner, or in other settings too, we can ask that same question. What is the ojodo in a different way, right? After a couple of beers, be like, Sensei, what do you think, Sensei, right? You can say that. And that then becomes another way to study the Buddha Dharma and to encounter the Buddha Dharma. And that's why these seminars, I feel, is something that I want to bring back into circulation. And so, Sensei, thank you very much for your time today. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much. And Sato Sensei, thank you for coming today. Arigatou gozaimasu. So I'd like to close with Gassho today. Thank you. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo Amida Butsu.